All right, this is show number 57, and just in time for the fall weather, we brought Jim Davis back to our guy we had back on show number 26. Can't believe it's been this long. It was back in January 24th of 2012, I believe, Jim, that we had you on. Long time ago, it seems. It seems like it was just around the corner, but I can't believe it's been that long already. As we're coming to the end of 2012, and it's different where you live in the different parts of the country, but around here, the leaves haven't quite started changing yet. So I thought, hey, let's get Jim on. Even up where Jim lives up in Canada, right, Jim? Even up where you live, the leaves are really, you still have an opportunity to go up there and take the photos. They haven't gone all the way yet, have they? So this is a great time. If you're like me, if you're into landscape, I think the fall, for me at least, the fall is my favorite time to go out and shoot landscapes, even more so than the spring. I love going out and shooting in the fall. So we thought we'd have Jim back on. Before we get into that, I want to go over a few things. We're still giving away the Wacom, I never get to say that right, Intuos tablet and this little card reader that I bought by accident. It's a USB 3.0 card reader. So that's going to run through the end of October. It is. You go to our Facebook page or our web page. If you're here watching us live, you're already at the web page. There's a link that you can go and you can sign up to win this thing. It's really easy what you have to do to win it. And then we'll have probably another giveaway the following month. Coming. One of the reasons we stretched it out all the way to the 16th, to the 30th, is that on the 16th of August, no, I get my months all mixed up. On the 16th of this month, we have Rachel Brinke coming back, and she's going to be giving away a whole boatload of stuff. Yeah. She's going to be announcing the winners live on the show, and I didn't want to, have each other have the two giveaways cross each other. So we're going to spread those out a little bit. So anyway, we'll do this one then, and some of the things you got to do. I think the minimum you got to do is like our Facebook page, which Kathleen, Tim, I don't know if you saw, we finally crossed the 2,000 mark.
Okay, I'm on my Facebook page, and I've been in photography for 12 years. I'm stuck at 668.
668.
So 2,000 is amazing.
Yeah, I think it took us a little bit under a year to get to the first 1,000. And then it only took us a few months to get to the 2,000. So that was.
There's twice as many people telling people.
It kind of builds on itself. Yep. That's good. So, and we're getting our Facebook group is growing very well. And the benefit of the group is you get to go in there and you get to post some of your photos, and have people give you feedback. And one of the ways to grow in photography is to have other people, help you and critique your photos, because sometimes we get lost in our own photos and we look at them and we don't have that critical eye we need to have, or just getting other people's opinions, and that's what it is opinions. Photography is an art, not necessarily a science. So you don't have to listen to everybody else, but you get some good feedback there. And even if you don't want to post a lot, watching what other people do and listen to what other people say in there is pretty good. We have one basic general rule, and that is be nice. We don't want people beating up on each other, and they don't. We have a really good group in there.
We were supposed to do that rapid fire review, and it didn't work out. I think that we should pull those photos next show and go ahead and just do it anyway. Yeah,
we could do that. We'll have to see who's going to be the host and do that. What Kathleen is talking about is we had Jared Poland from Fro Knows Photos on last week, and we were going to do rapid fire reviews. That's one of the things he's known for. He was going to do a rapid fire review. And Tim, you missed Kathleen and I wearing our wigs.
Yeah, I heard all about it. My friend was actually on the podcast, and he was laughing. He actually, him and his
I have it right here.
Him and his girlfriend actually follow him and saw him posted that he's going to be on our site.
Yeah, I got.
Okay.
Yeah, he laughed at you.
There. Your friend laughed at me?
My friend laughed at you, yes.
Well, it definitely doesn't make me look any better. But it was in honor of him, not making fun of him, and he understood that. So that was good. It was a fun show. And I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway. So the other thing we have is through this Friday, and this is in our Facebook group, through this Friday, is the voting for the September contest. The September contest was celebration. You take a photo, you know, whatever celebration means to you. You post it into the album that we talked about, and then we have this week. Everybody is to go out there, find that album, and I've linked to it multiple times. If you need me to do it again, I can do it again. Go out there and vote on the photo that you like the best by liking it. And by this Friday, I will pull the top three with likes, based on likes, and then give them to the 4 admins, which is Kathleen, Tim, Gina Perry. Is that her name? Gina Perry? Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
and myself, and we'll then pick a winner out of those 3, and then the winner, you know, will be here on the photo will be here on the show, and the 2 runners up will too. The photo will be the header of the group, and Stacy Jensen will give the winner a $25 gift certificate, and we'll link to all their work and everything. So you have to this Friday to go out there and vote. So make sure you vote. And we've already started, since this is October, we started the next contest. The winner from last month got to choose this coming up contest, and that's black and white. I really like that. That's a good subject. I like black and white.
I like that one too.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If you win, you get to pick the next month's contest. So I'll be adding that album sometime this week. You have to the end of October to get that photo in there. And yeah, that's it. Anything I forgot on the intro?
Nope. Got it all.
All right, so let's get to Jim. And now, anybody who's missed Jim's first time on the show way back in January, and I know we've picked up a lot of listeners since then, Jim is this guy who will go like on a 200-mile hike through the back country carrying a canoe. where some of the rest of us would have trouble carrying a canoe from the backyard to the front yard. Jim is carrying it 200 miles through the woods.
Yeah, I can't imagine
To
that.
get
I
an
have
elusive
to,
picture.
To go and get some of those
I have to
pictures.
get in my side yard for my newborns, and just flipping it over, I have to get the dad to help me do it.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Jim takes he does all that work to take the amazing photos that he takes. And you know, one of the things as we look at these, I think if I remember right, Jim, none of these are HDR.
There actually might be one in there that would be considered, depending on your opinion of what HDR is, it would be.
Okay.
And that would be one of the waterfalls, which is Eagle Cliff Falls. It's a landscape format, if that helps you identify it.
Okay.
With the cascade in the foreground and then the nice little waterfalls coming back in the background.
Okay.
That one is a multiple exposure.
Okay. And I'm going to bring up some of the photos now as we'll just talk and let them play.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim, I guess, you know, as people start thinking about taking fall colors, what is anything special, anything different than maybe a normal landscape, or maybe we should just talk about landscape in general? You know, are as you're carrying this canoe and all this stuff through the woods, are you dragging along a tripod also?
Oh yeah, that's part of my kit. It always comes with me. Of course, depending on the time of day that you're shooting, and for the most part, it's either early morning or later on in the day where the light is maybe a little bit lower. You're not getting the midday light, and sometimes exposures can be, you know, anywhere up to 6 seconds or more at times, depending on what type of scene you're shooting and what kind of an effect you're going for. But as far as fall photography or autumn photography, one of the things that I recommend is knowing the area that you're going to do, because within Ontario, right now we have a range of between 15 to 80% color change, depending on the region within Ontario. So the opportunity to hit some of these places as the time goes on, you know, is good. You can really extend your fall shooting by keeping track of what areas are changing at what time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things I recommend, is go to, whether you be in Canada or United States, is go to your state or your provincial color reports, and you can map those out and then, you know, make decisions on where you're going at what time.
So I'm not familiar with that. There's color
There's a
reports?
website that tells you when the leaves are going to change.
Yeah, we have what's called the Ontario Fall Color Report, and it will give you a percentage on how much color change is within certain regions.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, because it does vary quite significantly. I was just up north last week. It's about, as us Canadians always tell distance by time, it's about a 5-hour drive away. And they're at about 80% right now. Whereas down here where I live, we're at about 15 to 20%.
Wow.
So
well, that would be really good for me too, because I'm constantly having my clients say that they want fall pictures, and I just learned from experience that our leaves don't start changing until late October, even sometimes mid-November, but that's just from experience. But knowing that there's a place where you can actually look it up would be very helpful for me to know that this year is not going to be different than last year, you know?
Yeah, and it'll give you day-to-day updates. At least it does with the Ontario Fall Color Report.
Is it just called Fall Color Report?
I just put a link to one, the USA Fall Foliage Map. There's a bunch in there.
Oh, nice.
So that's a really handy tool to use, because every year it can range from a few days to a week in the progress of the colors changing. And even sometimes it can be a couple days by the time they peak and they start falling off the trees, or if you get some high winds, and that can make or break, you know, what you want to, the region that you want to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, I mentioned before the show started my new phone, and one of the things I've been doing the last couple of weeks, because I don't really know of a good spot where I want to go, is I've been just driving up north. I live a little bit northeast of Atlanta, and I've been driving up to about an hour, 2 hours north of here where the mountains are, our little mountains, and just scouting. I brought my SLR, I brought the tripod just in case I found some spots. But the reason I brought the phone for the phone, but also what I'm doing is as I'm driving around, I find a spot that looks interesting. I take a photo with my phone, which has GPS, and when I come home, I plug that into Lightroom, and now it's got the mapping feature, and I have all these spots of where I want to go back and check out. And my thought is, let me start going up there before the leaves start to change, so that I have ideas of where I want to come back.
Yeah.
I'll just put another one in there from the Weather Channel, and this gives by region of the United States also, and what it's currently at. Like it says for me, I'm at 0 to 10% change right now in my area.
Yeah, I need some more time, because I have not found many good spots right now. I find what I've found, Jim, is as I'm driving around, I find these beautiful spots, but there's no pull off whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I mean, if you look at I'm just looking through the chat here. If you look at maps and things like that, and you can find, and sometimes you do have to hike to those locations, so you may have to park a couple of kilometers or a couple miles away.
Get your canoe.
Yeah. I just went back in the chat, and Lady G Photography was asking what kind of camera I use. I just wanted to answer that, and I do use Nikon.
Yeah, and I know last time we were talking, in January, you used the D3X.
Yeah.
But I think since then you have got maybe the D4 and the D800E, or regular D800.
Yeah, no, I have the D800E and the D4.
Okay. Yeah. And some people, you know, a lot of people have heard of the D800, but I don't know if everybody knows the difference between a D800 and a D800E. Can you maybe explain why someone would want the E version? The E version is a few $100s more, but why would somebody want the E version?
Yeah, the E version lacks the anti-aliasing filter, which helps with color and pattern moire, depending on how you want to pronounce it, which will slightly reduce your sharpness if you have an anti-aliasing filter. And a lot of cameras nowadays are weakening that filter to a degree. So there's not a whole lot of difference, but there is some difference. So in nature landscape photography, for me, there's not really an issue with this this color and moire effect, which you will get in fine patterns of clothing and things like that. So somebody who's a studio photographer may be more concerned about that. Whereas
What is
nature.
Moray? I don't even know what that is. I've seen it, and I see it on Lightroom how you can adjust it, but I don't even really know what it is.
It's when you get very fine patterns. You will get a color shift between the patterns, and sometimes the details will be lost in this moire. What the anti-aliasing filter does is it aligns everything properly. And that would be the layman's kind of explanation of it. There is a more detailed.
Is that sometimes you can see like patterns in somebody's shirt that's not really there?
Yeah, and you'll get color
Yeah.
shifts and things like that.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, which I take it for a landscape photographer, that stuff's not quite as important because you don't
No.
have the moire issues.
Right.
And Kelly wants to know if that happens with brick walls.
Sometimes, yes, it does. So a brick wall would be something where there's, depending on how far away you are from the brick wall, but because of the amount of bricks and the vertical and the horizontal lines, that can cause the moire.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, we've talked in the past on the show about the D800 having some focus issues. Have you, with the I don't know if there's any difference in the focusing on the E versus the regular. Have you had any issues with your D800?
Yes, I did. And what I did was I went in and I fine-tuned my lenses. Now, one issue I am having is with manual focus and the alignment of the focusing screen,
Okay.
which I have to send it in to get it adjusted. So when I'm using a manual focus lens or just shooting an autofocus lens manually, what I see in the viewfinder is sharp, especially if I'm doing macro work. Will not always portray what is actually being captured. One of the things that I'm doing right now is if I am doing macros, I will use live view and focus using the live view.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's reading right off the sensor. So what you see on your screen on the back is exactly what you're going to get as far as focusing.
Okay, because the live view, like you said, is using a sensor where if you're going through the viewfinder, is bouncing off the mirrors and going through the lens.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, so that's interesting. So outside of that, have you been pleased with the move from the D3X to the D800? Or is that such a big issue that it's overshadowed it?
The D3X was a great camera, even though it's 1/3 more resolution. The D3X was and still is a great camera.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I did notice with the D800E or D800 is shooting long exposures. You will get some funny noise if you don't do long exposure noise reduction. So that's very important. And anybody that does a lot of long exposures, if you have to do the long exposure noise reduction, which is basically a dark frame for the same amount of time as your original frame, is
Right.
it can really extend your the time between shots that you have the ability to do. So that would be one thing that I would say is a little bit of a pain about it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the resolution, it's very nice.
So why'd you stop using the D? I know the answer, but I want to know if you want to tell us. Why'd you stop using the D3X?
Well, I actually started using it again because I got it fixed.
Oh, okay. All right.
But just for anybody that doesn't know, is I was up north and in the wintertime, and there's a series of events that led to me maybe not being as focused as I should have been. But anyway, I was doing a hike and I just felt like going for a walk, but I brought my camera with me anyway, and I ended up slipping on some ice and I fell in Georgian Bay, which is a very cold body of water, even in the summertime, let alone winter.
Oh my word.
But I mean, I didn't fall in, like it wasn't really deep. I only went up to my knees.
Yeah.
But of course my camera went under the water for maybe 1 or so seconds. So by the time my reaction, I grabbed it, pulled it out. There was some water damage to it. And the initial estimate I got back from Nikon was absolutely ridiculous. And I think they're basically telling me to buy a new camera.
Right.
It's almost the cost of buying a new one to fix it.
Wow. Did it like short out all the electronic or something? Is that what happened?
It did short out some, but not as much as what they led me to believe, because I don't even think they really looked at it. So anyway, I found a reputable service a camera service store, and they fixed it for me for a very good price.
Very good.
And everything was fine with it. So
Yeah, you know, one of the things that you know, we'll put the links in the show notes, but everybody out there should go to Jim's site. You know, the photos we're going to have here really don't do justice to Jim's work. We're having to compress them and the streaming and everything. But Jim also has some videos, and some of those videos he is like walking. If you're looking at the video, it looks like, Jim, you were walking right on the edge of something where, you know, you hit the wrong rock and you're going 500 feet down a cliff. So I'm not surprised that you ended up a little bit in the water. And I'm glad that, you know, the only thing that was damaged was the camera.
Yes.
Okay.
That last photo with the bridge, where was that one taken?
You want me to go back to it?
That's taken in Watkins Glen. I'll wait till he gets it up.
Was it this one, Kathleen?
Right?
Was it this one, Kathleen? Well, you gotta wait for it.
I'm pointing to it like you can see what I'm pointing to.
And there's a delay between what I do and what y'all see. So is that the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Jackie Kingsley was asking if that was Watkins Glen.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then there was one other picture where it was like red rock with a little waterfall streaming right between it, and then it almost looked like the fall leaves were placed perfectly on either side of the waterfall. Right there, you see it? Did you place those leaves, or were they there?
No, those leaves were placed, and they were placed for kind of a reason, because just to give you a bit of a background on that, that's called the Crack, and that's in Zion National Park down in Utah. And this is on a hike that I did, which leads into the subway, and it's about around a 9 or 10 mile hike in and out into the gorge and the canyon of Zion. Now, the leaves that fall in that area are not, there's no maples that fall there. I think there's cottonwoods and things like that aren't maybe quite so, they don't really show the fall colors that well. So what most photographers, not all of them, but what a lot of photographers will do as they're hiking in, they'll grab a few leaves here and there, knowing that they're going to place them there just to kind of add a little bit more to the scene.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that it's okay to do things like that to a degree. I mean, if you go and set up all your shots all the time, then it does kind of take away from them. But they're...
Well, and I think here it gives perspective, because if I didn't have the size of the leaf, I would have no clue how large that crack is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is there's actually a river that flows down there, and at certain times of year when the water levels are low, that's the only place that water flows through there, is through that crack, and it's quite unique to watch it and to experience it.
Huh.
I'm surprised over time it hasn't widened.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm surprised over time it hasn't widened that crack.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that rock is quite hard, and I don't know how long it's been at that width, but yeah, I mean, you would think that the water would erode at it or wear it away quite quickly.
But I guess if you're saying it's usually overflowed, there is no right now it would be eroding it, but if it's full, it's probably not eroding that area because the water's all around it, as opposed to just going through that one area, rushing through it.
Yes.
That's pretty beautiful.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that that I try to do is, you know, everybody wants to sometimes see the big fall scenes with all the colors and that, but sometimes looking at the smaller scenes, you can really pick out some nice details and things like that.
These canyon shots are just unbelievable. I was in canyons over the summer, and I was completely freaked out. And I was with my sisters. If they would have left, I don't think I could have stayed down there by myself to photograph. I would have been completely freaked out. There was
why were you?
everywhere.
What was that, Kathleen? Why were you freaked out?
Because there were bats everywhere. There are no bats in the
You know they'll bite you and turn you into a vampire.
No.
So Jim, is this all natural lighting?
Yes, that is all natural lighting. And this is actually midday lighting in the canyon. If you go early in the morning, the light is very flat. There's not really a lot of of contrast or interest in the colors and that. So during the midday, the sunlight comes in and it bounces off the canyon walls, and it creates a very nice light with all the different rocks and things like that.
So one of the few times you should be taking pictures of the high noon.
Yes.
Yeah, which I guess which is part of the scouting out your sites beforehand, is you're going and finding. Okay, Jim, I was just looking that up to put that out there. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, you're right, because here you talked about it, Jim. If you go in the morning, when most photographers think, or the late evening, when you think you should be taking pictures, the site would look terrible. And if you don't come back here at the right time of the day, you're not going to go and take pictures here.
Yeah, and there's a very small window of opportunity when the light becomes ideal at this location. You can see, this is called the subway. And you can see right in at the back of the image where there's a bright light coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the effect that most people want to see. Well, at certain times, the lighting is very dull there, so you don't get that effect. You don't get the separation of the rocks. Now with the lighting coming in, now you get more of a separation, so it gives you more depth within your photograph.
Right.
Right, or else that the foreground and that background there would kind of blend together in the darkness. So
Right.
is it because this is a well-known spot that the timing of when you should be there is well known, or did you just spend all day sitting there waiting for the right light?
Well, we hiked in. I mean, we knew just through research and things like that. Everybody knows that when you go to Zion, that you want to go on a day or you want to try to be there on a day where the lighting conditions are ideal. And when you hike in, you have to plan your hike so that you get there at a certain window of opportunity.
Okay.
In order to get the better lighting.
If you're going to a new location, how do you determine what the best light is? Do you just try and stake it out in the morning, try and stake it out in the afternoon, know that you know where the sun rises and sets, so you can kind of count, know whether you need to be there at night, afternoon, or morning, but you just try and wait the whole morning?
What I use is a couple of different things. I'll go on to Google Maps and take a look at different locations to get an idea of sun direction. I also use the photographer's ephemeris, which will tell me sunset, sunrise locations, directions, where the sun will be on the horizon, at what angle, those types of things. So
What was that thing again you did?
The photographer's ephemeris.
I don't know
Spell
that one either.
ephemeris.
You can get it for iPhone or Android. It's an app that you can get.
I have a sunset, sunrise app, but it doesn't do where the horizon, where the sun's going to be and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. How do you spell it? Photographer's what?
I'll put it in here in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Tim was probably trying to find it.
Yeah, I was trying. I have one of my Android called Golden Hour, which is probably along the same lines, but
Ephemeris.
There we go.
That's interesting.
yeah, no, I wasn't spelling it that way.
Yeah. Jim, what are you doing for white balance?
Honestly, I just use auto white balance because with shooting raw, it's not a concern for me. It's one less thing that I have to worry about changing the light balance throughout the day. I mean, obviously, if I notice that I'm not seeing what I should be on the back of the screen, sometimes I will go in and change it, just so that I have a better idea that I am capturing,
And you'll
the
just change it
proper.
using Calvin?
Yeah. But for the most part, I do shoot auto white balance. One of the few things that I do in auto. The cameras are pretty good these days for the white balance. So yeah, but getting back to the photographer's ephemeris, and one of the things that I really believe is that if you're going to spend the money and the time to go to a location, that the research beforehand is very important, because I don't want to get there and have to do my research when I'm at the location. I want to go there educated, and I just feel that that's very important to spend a little bit more time before the trip. Now, as far as time of the day, someone asked about what time of the day I would go. For forest scenes, I generally avoid midday if it's going to be sunny out, because you get too many hot spots in the forest. What I'll try and do is go first thing in the morning, say, depending on when the sun's coming up, but before sunrise, so that I'm there when there is some nice light coming in, and then the opportunity for light rays to come in, but not really bright ones where you would get midday, and then the opportunity for fog or mist and that type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next is other weather conditions other than just the sun. Is are you, if it's going to be overcast, is that, you decide, no, I'm not going to go that day, or are you hoping to get maybe a little more fog on an overcast day?
Yeah, absolutely. Overcast days in the fall within a forest are usually a good thing at times. You want to avoid sometimes the really harsh lighting, because it does cause problems. I mean, cameras are getting better with the higher dynamic range right in the camera that you can work with, but just my experience is that it's what our eyes see is different than what the camera sees.
Right.
So what may look good to our eyes, when the camera captures it, you'll get where the hot spots where the sunlight is coming in will be blown out, and then your shadows will be too dark, or vice versa. So
yeah, last time we had you on, I was still using the Nikon D2X. And I still have that camera. I still like the camera for certain purposes. But since then, I've gone full frame and got the D700. And other than a lot of the things I've noticed about it, one of the things I noticed is it does have better dynamic range. And it was noticeable from the first images I took with it. And I know that the D700 is a little bit old now, but like the D800, and I'm sure on the Canon side too, is that they're getting even better with the dynamic range.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of people who aren't landscape photographers don't always think about that. They're thinking about the ISO, and those things are important. But dynamic range is really starting to improve too. Have you noticed that in the 800?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do less exposure bracketing than I used to. Although I still will do it if I feel that the scene may benefit from it, but probably 80% of the time I end up using one image out of the exposure bracket I don't need to blend them.
Okay.
Just a couple of questions I wanted to get to. Somebody asked me, Lady G again asked about whether I'm a perfectionist. Sometimes I am, yes, very much so. I usually do what I call warm-up pictures, where I get to a place, I'll take some pictures just to start to get a feel of composition and lighting and things like that. And then I begin to fine-tune a composition, looking at it, what I don't like, try to eliminate distracting elements within a photograph, really tighten up the composition. So in that respect, I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, although I try to not be a perfectionist at all times, because it can drive you nuts, to the point where sometimes you're not happy with a really good image, because something that other people may not see, it's there for you because you see it.
And I think that's one thing about landscape photographers. They generally have a lot of patience. And I don't, I know that in regular life, I do not have a lot of patience. With landscape photography, I seem to slow down. Probably not nearly as good as what you do, but it does take some patience. One, in finding the right location, and then waiting for the right light. So when you get to a location, are you kind of moving around the scene, maybe taking a few shots and looking at what you think the composition before you fine tune where you want to shoot from?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I look at a scene from different angles to get a feel for what is the best. There are times where I walk up to a scene and I see it right away. I know exactly what I want to do. There's other times where maybe something's not quite fitting right, and at first I don't know what the problem is, I would say, or the issue that I'm not comfortable with, and through the process of moving around and fine-tuning the composition is you work that through until you're happy, and sometimes I'm not happy with it.
Yeah. Do you, they asked that in chat, do you use filters at all? Any kind of, other than like maybe an ND filter? Are you using any kind of warming filters or anything like that?
I don't use warming filters. I do use polarizer most of the time, especially obviously with water. A lot of times when I shoot the time of day that I'm shooting water. Generally, I don't need to use neutral density filters. A polarizer is enough to give me the time that I may be looking for, say, long exposure on water. But the main thing for that is to reduce glare and reflections, and that helps with your color saturation.
Now I just said other than ND, but do you ever use an ND filter?
Occasionally I will, yes.
Okay.
But not very often.
Okay. Well, here's an important question for you, and this affects me directly. Is one of the things when I went from a D2X to the D700 is I went full frame. And I had, when I was with the DX version, you know, the D2X, I had a lens I really liked for landscape. It was a 12-24 Tokina lens, and it was fairly good. Looking at the reviews, it was, you know, on par with the Nikon version. But now that I've gone to a full frame, that lens just won't work. I mean, it'll work, but I'll be at a 5 megapixels on the camera, and I don't want to do that. What is your favorite landscape lens? And how much is it going to cost me?
That's a tough question because it depends on the area that I'm going.
Okay.
If I'm going to, say, the waters, does everybody see the two side-by-side shot?
Yeah.
They should. I've had it up for a little bit because I wanted to ask you about that one. But
so that's a fall and spring, and that's kind of what I do. Is I'm just, in that regard, I'm just comparing. You know, I go back to a scene at different seasons and try to shoot the same thing to see how it looks side by side. But in a scene like that, I usually use the Nikkor 24-70.
Okay.
And I find that that's my most used lens in this area where I live. Now, if I go down to Arizona, Utah, then I gravitate more towards the 14-24 because the landscapes are so much bigger.
Okay. So it's mostly dependent on where I'm going to be shooting, but it would be between either one of those two lenses. The 14-24, the 24-70.
Yeah, it'll be between those two. So I wouldn't say that I have a favorite. It depends on the landscape. But one thing I do find is that a lot of scenes I generally gravitate towards, not consciously, but around a focal length of anywhere from 24 to 35 millimeter.
Okay.
In my area here where I live.
Yeah, so that seems maybe for me the best thing to do is get a 24-70 because right now my widest angle that is a non-DX lens is, I guess, my 50 millimeter. You know, which is not wide enough. So I was thinking about, do I need to go to like a 14-24, and they're just not cheap, or maybe something else. And you know, I got to imagine here where we live needs that really wide angle even less than where you are, because we don't have those grand openings, you know, like they do out west. So, and you know, maybe for my first wide angle lens, landscape lens, I'll get to look at the 24-70. Yeah. After look at what the price is. Yeah.
And not only that, but the 24-70 takes standard filters, like a 77 millimeter filter size. The 14-24, you need to get an adapter for it and expensive filters, and I mean there are other options out there, but it does. I mean, I've got the filters that I use on my 14-24. The whole set is, you're looking at around $1,000 just to get a filter system.
Wow.
So it does really cost a lot of extra money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, it's just like good lenses. You know, as you start, I just looked at the price of the 24-70.
It's up there as well.
Yeah, it's almost $2,000.
Right there with me wanting the 70-200 2.8 from Sony.
I have the 70-200 2.8 Nikon, but you know, I'm gonna have to save up for this one. But you know, that's the thing is good. You know, the bodies we're talking about. Jim has gone from D2X, D800, D4. I've gone from the D2H, D2X, D700. The bodies come and go. A good quality lens that you take care of will last through multiple bodies.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think if you buy a inferior lens, now there's some point where, you're not getting a huge difference between maybe the off-brand and the Nikon or the Canon, but you got to be careful because where I think Nikon and Canon are much better with being consistent, I think the off-brands, you know, maybe not quite as consistent. So where Sigma or Tokino, Tamron may have a good lens here or there, they may also have other lenses that are far inferior to the main brand. So you got to do a little bit more research on those. But yeah, good quality lens. If you're finding a lens that's super cheap, there's probably a reason why.
Yeah. And there's other things too with distortion and that type of thing, barrel distortion. So, I mean,
well, you know, my first 70-200 was a Sigma, and I thought it was an awesome lens. And I think they've gone several generations since that lens, so things may have changed. I don't want to scare people off of Sigma. And I thought it was a great lens until I tried the Nikon version, and the sharpness, the color, the saturation, and the contrast, all that was better with the Nikon lens.
Yeah.
And then you just got to ask yourself, is it so much better that it's worth the huge increase in price? And I guess for me, because I was going to keep it for a long time, it was.
Yeah.
Now, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say another question is about how much time do I spend editing and whether I get it right in camera or try to get it right in camera. I think it's very important. I mean, I came from film days and I shot mostly transparency film, where, I mean, what you shot is what you got. So it was very important to get it right in camera. So I still hold that same mentality when I'm out shooting, is because I want to maximize the quality of the file, the digital file that I have now, so that when I do get home and start editing it, number one, it's less work, but you're starting at a higher level, so you don't have to go as far to get it that much better, but you also have a higher quality file to work with through composition, waiting for the right light, that type of thing, so that you're pushing the file less when you get it home. And it's also the mentality of you know, why you're there. Is if you are a perfectionist or if you're really serious about it, you want to really know what you're doing, and what it does is it helps you fine-tune your process of picture taking or composition, and knowing the aperture you're using, why you're using that aperture, your shutter speeds. So knowing all these things and understanding them is very important. Jeannie asked, is the Nikon D300 a good camera? Well, that's one of the cameras that I used to have, and it was a very good camera, and it still is, depending on what your purpose is. You can still get some really good images out of it. You can make some nice size prints out of it. So yeah. Great
I think
camera.
you know, the idea of getting it right in camera is really for not just landscape, but for most things. The less you have to push the image in post-processing, the better. You know, software get better and better at pushing images, but the less you have to push it, the better. I mean, if you seriously underexpose or seriously overexpose, there's only so much you can do to it. Where if you get it, you know, fairly close to the right exposure within a third of a stop or so, you're going to be so much more pleased with that image when you go to edit it.
Especially if you're going to be printing your images large, because the larger you print them, the more the faults that you have in the images are going to be amplified. So that's another consideration. And I mean, for me, it's just the approach that you take right from the beginning throughout the whole process is very important. You know, you're going to be doing less cropping because you've really worked and fine-tuned your composition, and you know, just things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right here, is that the sun? Is that like a line of the sun?
Yeah, that's called Temple of the Virgins down in Zion, Utah, and that's just the sun cracked through, hit the peaks. Yeah, we were kind of hoping for more light to come out, but that was it. But I mean, it still has a very nice effect.
Yeah, and I gotta imagine it was only there for a few minutes like that, right?
Yeah, it wasn't that long. It didn't last that long because it was a cloudy day, and it just poked out and then it was gone.
Yeah. Jeannie asked, and I think I know what she's asking here. On your camera, you know, they have settings where you can change the number of how it changes as you flip your dial, whether it changed by 1/3, a half stop, or a full stop. I have mine set to the lowest amount of change, which is 1/3 stop as you turn the dial. Is that what you do too?
Yeah, and you can set that in different areas of your camera as well. So I have it at 1/3 increments.
Mm-hmm.
On one of my cameras, I have my ISO goes up in full stop increments. So 100 to 200 to 400 to 800, 1600, 3200, 6400, and so on. Instead of where you can go up to 640, 800, 720, all the different ISOs in between. And I don't know if it's verified, but some people are saying that using the native ISO stops you're going to get a cleaner images.
You mean at the full stop rather than going 1/3?
Yeah, not in the exposure values, but in the ISO settings. Yes.
Huh? I never heard that. I don't. I have never done that. I know when I set it to auto ISO. So let's say I'm shooting a manual. I'm shooting sports, and I'm shooting a manual. So shutter, aperture are both locked down, and the thing that's moving around is the ISO.
Mm-hmm.
The strange thing is it'll pick ISOs that are not even it's even more fine-tuned than that 3rd stop.
Yes.
It's picking all kind of weird ISOs in between. But I never really thought, but that's a good point, is in the Nikons you can have custom menus, and setting up another custom menu where I have it set for a full stop swing every time I change, turn the dial on ISO. That would probably be a very good way, because often you're wanting to go up a full stop. You're wanting to go from 400 to 800 or 1600, real quick, and you have to go click, 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 click. I can feel the three, and I know I've gone up 2 full stops.
Yeah.
So knowing I only have to do a click, click, and I'm up 2 stops is awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one of the other things that I do, and everybody's different, but I shoot in manual mode because I want to have control over what I do with the camera. I don't want the camera picking any settings, whether it be aperture or shutter speed, for me. And then I can fine tune my exposure based on that as well.
Yeah, and I do a lot of my landscape in manual too. Now, what about your what is that? Matrix metering versus center weighted versus spot? How are you doing your metering?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the scene. So if I have a tricky situation, I'll go to spot metering and meter off of an area that I want to meter for. But most of the time nowadays, I'm using the matrix metering because it does a very good job. And because I shoot in manual mode, if I find that it's off a little bit, I can just drop it down a 1/3 of a stop or a 1/2 a stop.
And like in this image that we're looking at here, I imagine that where the sun was hitting the rock was very bright.
Mm-hmm.
And in the foliage down below, the trees down below, and maybe even the sky wasn't nearly as bright, but yet everything looks like it has detail. Even in the bright line of the sun, even in the sky a little bit, you have some detail. And in this resolution that we're looking at here, we can't really tell how much detail is in there.
Mm-hmm.
But in the trees, even in this low resolution that we're looking at here, I can see that the trees have detail too. How are you able to maintain the detail throughout that image?
But for the most part, I want to make sure that I don't blow the highlights.
Okay.
And then there's enough dynamic range within the body that I was allowed enough to pull out from the shadows.
Okay.
So make sure my highlights aren't blown, but also make sure it's just a fine thing where I will bracket the exposures a little bit just to make sure that I don't get, when I'm bringing up the shadows a bit, I'm not going to get any noise in the shadows.
And we talked about earlier HDR. You do some HDR, but for the most part, I think most of the photos we looked at here are not HDR. This image here is not HDR, right?
No, it's a single exposure, yes.
So when you're bracketing, because I think a lot of people hear bracketing and they think, yeah, you're bracketing to HDR later on, but you're bracketing just because you want to get you want to shoot on both sides of the normal exposure, so you can get maybe one of them is going to be better than the other. Are you doing 1/3 stop brackets or full stop brackets?
I will do usually whatever I need to do, but a lot of times it's 1/3 stop brackets.
Okay.
And when I do, like, I don't want to get into a whole thing about HDR, but there is a thing that people have a kind of a, what would you call it? I can't think of the word right now. When people say HDR, they have the vision of their head of the, you know, haloing and oversaturation and that
Right.
cartoony kind of look or whatever. But I mean, HDR basically means high dynamic range.
Right.
So I try to remove that connotation of the HDR look that everybody talks about. And if I do blend images, I have tried the HDR programs like Photomatics and things like that, but I don't really like it because they really kill your contrast.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will do is, whether it be 2, 3, or 4 images that I would blend, is I manually blend them in Photoshop. So I bring up each image in a layer, and then I add and remove what I want and what I don't want. So if I have blown highlights that I've shot in one of the images to bring up the shadows, I will remove those blown highlights to reveal the properly exposed highlights from another layer. So that way you don't get that haloing, and you don't get the oversaturation cartoon kind of look.
Right. And
so that's how you keep it more natural looking.
And because you're working on a tripod, these are perfectly aligned.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I just put up another. Somebody in chat's asking to tell you about a certain image. Oh, I have to try and find that one. That one's. That one is Jackie. Let's see if I can find that.
Venice Beach, Florida.
Yeah. So that's a long exposure.
Yeah, the water looks very flat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up. So this one was actually taken with the Nikon D300 at f/22, obviously to get a longer exposure as I could. It was 6 seconds at the time at IS200. And that's just basically, I was at Venice Beach and I saw the pier. The sun was coming down. The clouds were just perfect. The sun rays were coming through. And yeah, that's the resulting image from that.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, and we're at Jim's site. I think you put it in the chat earlier. And go here after the show, and you can see a lot more of his work in better resolution. And
Jackie's questioning the night sky.
In that image?
Yes, I guess. I mean, it doesn't look like it's night, but if it's long exposure, it's...
That was taken, I don't know what time it was taken at. I'd have to take a look at the info on it to see if it...
Yeah, all I can see is the keyword says it's sunset. So it's probably as the sun's going down. I don't know what the question on that one was.
12. So that was taken at...
No, that's not the one, she says.
At 6:24. In
this one here? Is the one with the bridge there, Jackie? You may have to come back.
Might be a few seconds behind.
While we're waiting for that, here's that lens. You guys probably can't see the amount, can you? Wait, come on, there's a big delay. You can barely see it. 1889.
That's like the Sony one I want, $19.99. Like,
yeah.
I saw it on eBay last week for $15.40, and I couldn't pull the trigger. It was a used one, though.
So she said she sent the link, but I see that the link she sent, it looks like the link was cut off, the full link.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We may have to come back to that one. Yeah, Jackie, it looks like part of the link is cut off. Uncategorized number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it?
Okay, I know which one she's talking about. That's the with the Milky Way.
Yeah, I think it's this one, right?
Is that correct? And there's an iridium flare.
Yeah, I think this is the one with the person standing in the middle of it. I see a shadow.
I don't know if it's a person. Is that a? That's not a person. That's a rock.
Yeah, that's what do you call a C stack? So that's, and actually I should take that image out of there because I do have one that was one that I had processed and I didn't like it, but I haven't taken it off my my SmugMug site. But anyway, so that's up in Flower Pot Island, up on the tip of Tobermory in Ontario, and it's a very beautiful place. So this was taken at, I believe, possibly around 2 o'clock in the morning, of the Milky Way with the C stack silhouetted against the sky, and there was an iridium flare which looks like a shooting star, which is basically a like a space station or a satellite.
Mm-hmm.
The light of the sun or the moon, sorry, has reflected off of it as it's passed through that portion of the sky, so you get a flare. That's why they call it an iridium flare.
That just blind luck that you caught that in there?
Well, I had done multiple exposures of that shot, so eventually you're going to catch something, you know. And
yeah.
They're at about 30 seconds a shot.
Wow, that is amazing. That's one of those things where, you know, we've had something like this on before, but where you've got to be away from the city lights.
Yeah.
Because you're doing those long. What's that?
I was going to say there is, if you go into the gallery prints and into Ontario, Canada, there's a shot of that same C stack, but it's a much better image that was taken. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, image 7 in the Ontario, Canada gallery, and it was taken later on in the morning at about 4:30 in the morning when the sky took on more of a blue effect.
Oh yeah, that one is gorgeous. I don't know how well it's going to come through here in chat. So, yeah, guys out there, y'all need to. I love this one. This one's gorgeous.
So that's a good kind of a comparison between shooting at different times. So the one earlier was taken at approximately around 2 in the morning, when the sky had more of a black appearance to it.
Yeah.
This one here was taken, I believe it was around 4:20 in the morning, where the sun was starting. You can see in the horizon, you can see some of the color of the sun, or the light from the sun coming up, and the sky takes on more of a bluish hue.
Blue hour.
Yeah, so that's where sometimes shooting at different times can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and blue hour is the hour before sunrise and the hour after sunset, right? And not necessarily.
I thought golden hour was the hour before. Wasn't one golden and one? No.
Yeah, golden is inside the sunset, so after sunset, before sunrise. Oh, wait, after sunrise, before sunset, and blue hour is on the outside of it, so it's before sunrise, after sunset, and not necessarily a full hour, but that's the name: blue hour and golden hour. Yeah. And they asked if was any flash used in this image.
Now, what that one, sometimes I will use off-camera flash to light scenes like this, but that scene was so large that if I used an off-camera flash, I would have had a problem with getting. I mean, I could have used it to my advantage to get a certain effect that I was looking for, or could have been looking for, but in that situation, I wanted to come up with a more natural-looking light. Mm-hmm. What I used was reflected light from my flashlight. So I would use, sometimes I will either use a reflector, or I will use the landscape itself to reflect the light. And in this case, I used the landscape itself. In behind me, there was a wall of limestone, which was not white, but an off-white color. So what I did is I shone the light backwards, and it reflected back towards the scene and lit it up nice and even like that, so that I didn't have any issues with you know, the foreground being too bright and the background being too dark.
How tall is that thing?
That's about 40 feet.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty good size. So going back to the fall photos, what would you say, what would be your top tips for somebody who, you know, notices the colors that they're driving around, whatever, and they notice the colors and they say, you know what, I want to go out and start taking some fall photos? What would be your top tips for maybe a beginner wanting to get out there and take fall photos?
I would say get to know an area that you want to photograph. Really get to understand it. Look for compositions that appeal to you. That's the most important thing, obviously. The other thing is isolation and contrast. So the image that you have up right now shows a tree with fall colors against a green background of cedar trees and spruce trees and that type of thing. So, you know, those things, so that helps the colors stand out. Like, it's one thing to shoot a whole forest of different colored trees. It looks very beautiful and everything, but it all kind of blends in together and it melds into one. Whereas if you start picking apart a composition and using the contrast between the colors to work in your favor and that type of thing, that's the other thing would be, you know, using a polarizer to help reduce reflections, especially if it's been raining. You get a lot of shiny leaves, so if you take away that shininess, you really bring out the color in the foliage.
And what, you know, I noticed a lot of yours, and the one we just watched and the one's coming up, have water in the image. Do you like to have water in the image? What is your thoughts on water in the image?
Absolutely. Like, to me, water means a lot. I do a lot of canoeing, so I'm always around water. But even when I'm not canoeing, if I'm hiking into a gorge where there's a stream, I really love I mean, to me, water is life. Without it, you know, we wouldn't be here. So I think it's very important. But I even walk through the water. Some of the shots that I want to get, I have to get my feet wet. So I wear the appropriate clothing and the right shoes so that I can walk in water and it doesn't affect, you know, I don't have soggy feet at the end of the day, or my hiking boots aren't soggy, so I'll wear water shoes. But to me, it really increases the experience, really brings it to the forefront when I would relate it to going to the beach but not getting your feet wet. When I go to the forest and I'm around the water and everything, it really does help. I believe anyway. The sounds in the forest, the smells, the sound, you know, the wind blowing through, and then the water. You know.
Yeah, and I love like the fog coming off the water, like in this one.
And that was taken on a canoe trip where it rained solid for 5 days. We had, I shouldn't say it rained solid. We did have periods where there was no rain, but every day it rained. But that's just part of it. You know, you have to accept it. And
now, you said do you often go out shooting landscape with other people, or do you find it something that you want to do on your own? I got to imagine that as a landscape photographer, you know, the patience you have to wait and get the right shot, everybody may not have that shot. You know, I don't know how your spouse is, but does your spouse ever go traveling with you on any of these?
Yeah, at times. But what I have to do when I take my wife and my boys with me is I have to ease off on the photography and transfer some of that time that I spend towards them. So, but I have a friend that I've been shooting with for over 20 years. So usually when I say we, that includes him. I do have other people that I have shot with, but I don't like to go out on group shoots because it becomes distracting. And everybody's kind of shooting the same thing, you know, that type of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because you can shoot the same scene and 5 people will get a different version of that same scene. But for me, it's about solitude, and I do a lot of solo shooting. It's about connecting with nature. So that's what I try to bring out in my photographs is the emotional response.
Yeah, and I think
what are the coffee table books you have in the background there?
Pardon me?
You have 2 books sitting in the background. What are they?
Oh, one of them is Galen Rowell. Most landscape photographers know of him. He was one of the premier adventure photographers that really, you know, a lot of people use him for inspiration. And he was one of my greatest sources of inspiration when I started out in photography. So, I mean, he's no longer with us. Him and his wife died in a plane crash, doing what they loved. So, you know, that's part of, I guess, part of the parcel.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, some of you may have seen this. This is the +1 collection that was done on Google Plus.
Yeah. Is that for sale? Can somebody buy that?
I don't know if they still have them for sale now. I don't think they do, but these were done in, this one was the limited edition, the higher end book that went out. It was, I think it was $200, and I got this one because one of my images is in it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's what this book is, and it's every, I can't remember how, I think there's 193 different photographers in this book that submitted out of, I don't know how many submitted to get into the book, but yeah, it was kind of nice to be selected, and you know, a nice memory to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Was that?
Yeah.
Was that the Photo Extract group?
No, this was done by Ivan Makarov, who now works with SmugMug. He started this up, just kind of an idea to put a book together, and it just kind of exploded.
Hey Tim, I think we're getting your thing hitting your mic. Yeah, I think through that, or either some other way like that, is how I first came across your work, Jim. Is I think through that +1.
So that's the image there that I had put in for the book. I don't know how well it comes through.
Where was that taken?
This was taken in on the Bruce Peninsula, Niagara Escarpment region of Ontario, which would be the Tobermory region, and it's just an absolutely beautiful location with 200-foot cliffs and turquoise waters. You know, it's just absolutely beautiful. And I named that one. You were supposed to give your photograph a name, so I named that one My Home and Native Land, because it's from Ontario, and that was very important for me when I submitted one for that, would be to pick, even though I may have had better images from other places that I've been, but to pick one from my home province.
And I think we showed that one the first time you were on, because it looked familiar, but now it's kind of blending together, whether we showed it or I just saw it in your work somewhere else. Now, you know, so one of the questions I have is, you know, when people often see great work like you have, is when you go out, are you coming back with just, you know, thousands of great images, or when you're out for a shoot, how many good images are you hoping to come back with?
Well, I think as you progress as a photographer and you fine-tune your craft, you come back with less and less what you consider good photographs, or ones that you would consider saleable photographs.
So actually, as you get better, you come back with less?
Yeah. Not less total that you've taken, maybe, but everybody shoots differently, but less images that you feel are up at the top. Because you become very, very picky, and you become more selective with the scenes that you're shooting, and you really try to fine tune it. So if I come back from, say, I go on a 2-week trip to Zion in 2011 in November, if I come back with what I would consider 10 good images out of, say, the over 3,000 images that I shot, then I would be happy.
Okay.
And I mean, you know that, you know, in 2 weeks you shoot 3,000 images, but a lot of those images are exposure bracketing, the same scene but different angles, that type of thing. So then from there, what I really try to do is pick what I feel is the best one out of all of those images, and not pick 10 of them and show everybody and say, oh, which one do you like? But I really try to fine tune my editing process to pick out the best one.
Yeah, I'm sure as you come across a scene, you know, even excluding the bracketing, you come across a scene, you take multiple images, you're finding your location, you take a different shots based on the different light that's happening as the morning progresses, and from that one scene, you may only pick one photo.
Yes.
But yet you took 100 or 200 photos while you were at that scene.
Right.
Yeah, and in addition to that, as you get better and better, it probably you get more and more picky about which ones you would consider good.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, now was this one a panorama shot?
That was not taken. That's not a multiple image blend or a stitch. That is one picture that I cropped down.
Okay.
Into, I did actually do that one. I did shoot it, but the stitch wasn't working out properly, so I just used one image, and but that was a beautiful morning. That was on one of the canoe trip that I was on, where it rained 5 days straight, and there was a break in the morning, and the lake was nice and calm, and it was just a very calm scene. Like, I would say it's not over the top, but it's just a very calming scene,
Yeah.
So the title that I give that one is Autumn Calm, because that's the way it makes me feel.
Yeah, the water looks just very steady.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jim, we're right at an hour, a little bit over an hour, and I know we've done a pretty good job of hitting questions out in chat as we're going through. But I wanted to know if anybody out in chat has any additional questions that we might have missed, because I often miss them as we're talking about something I'm doing production. So if you have any questions out in the chat that we missed, please go ahead and ask them now, and I will pull up a few more of his photos as we go through. I'm looking forward to getting back out there, especially now that I got this full frame camera. It's just the thing that's killing me is not having a good wide angle right now, but I don't think in $1,900 I'll be going out to buy it just yet.
Yeah.
I may have to drag the D2X along with me and take some with that, because D2X at ISO 100 is not bad. As the ISO goes up, it gets really bad.
Yeah.
What kind of tripod are you using?
I use a Gitsu carbon fiber tripod. I don't use one of the bigger ones, because with some of the locations that I go to, I need more of a compact, lighter one. So I use I believe it's a 1345 series.
Are you using? Is it like a 4-leg or not 4-leg? 4 extension thing?
No, I use one with the three extensions, because the 4-leg. I mean, hold on a minute here.
4 extension.
No, I do have the 4. I went to the 4 because the other one, the packed up height was too high for me, or not too high, but it was too long. So if I travel by plane, I can put this one in my backpack, in my luggage. And it's just much lighter than the other one.
Yeah, so I have. You're not even going to be able to see the legs. Well, you can a little bit. It's got the cushion on it, but as you see, I've taken the ball head off, because I'm not even using this right now, because this one is so heavy. It's got the 3. It's got the 3 sections.
Yeah. What's the point of the cushion on the legs?
So when I carry it like this.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
That was the thought. It was more for when I was doing sports and carrying around a big, 300 millimeter lens.
Yes.
I'd keep the camera on there and I'd keep the lens on there and it'd be heavy. And as I'm moving back and forth, I wanted that on there. Plus, it gave some protection for the legs.
Right.
Now, when I'm shooting landscapes, it gets in the way. So I've actually, and this is going to be kind of crazy, Jim. I've got this much smaller tripod that is enduro. It's an enduro. It's got little legs that it's a 3-section also, but it sets up really fast. But I've taken my huge ball head, the BH55, and it's way oversized for this tripod. I haven't bought a right size ball head for this one yet. So I need to get a better ball head to fit on this small tripod and put the big one back on the big tripod. Yeah. But this is a really right stuff ball head, if anybody's wondering.
Yeah, that's the same one that I use as well.
The BH, I think it's the BH55.
Yeah.
I have the,
quick connect.
Yeah, it's a quick connect, and it's got the dial. You still have to dial this, this in, but it's nice that it has a level on it. Um, it's a really good tripod, a really good ball head. I really like it. But I get tangled up in this. I get on my cameras always by the L bracket.
Yes.
So I got, as you can see it here, I think. You got the L bracket going like this. It's a metal bracket that goes on the camera that gives you, the connection. Can you see that? Yeah, that little, the little slide part here that you slide onto the tripod. You can either go, landscape or portrait. Really, really good with that.
Yeah. Trevor was asking if, with run-ins with wild animals, and how did I respond? I have had several run-ins with wild animals, wolves, bears, moose. For the most, I spend a lot of time in nature, so I'm very comfortable. And if you understand the nature of animals, that really helps you out a lot. And so I have come up to bears where they've actually gone off their hind legs, which is a warning sign.
Wow.
So the key with that is just to stop, slowly back up. Don't run. Everybody knows that. You don't run from a bear, right? Because they'll just chase you.
Yeah, and they can
They are
outrun
much
you.
faster.
They can outrun you.
Just make sure you're not the slowest guy.
Yes, exactly. If you're the fastest guy, then you're
I think you said that once before, Mike.
Well, it's one of the many reasons I will not be going taking photos in the woods with Jim. I would be the slowest guy, and plus I am not going to be very good at hiking 9 or 200 miles through the woods with a
canoe on your shoulder.
Jackie asked if I ever do portraits. I actually just got finished doing a wedding a few weeks ago before I went on my trip. So
I think I saw you posted that on Google Plus, didn't you? Some of the photos.
Yes. Yeah. I just put a couple of photos up. I still actually have to get through and I've looked at a few of them, but I haven't gone through the whole set of them yet. I have to do that starting tomorrow.
So how was that? Was that a big change for you? Is it your first wedding?
No, I used to shoot weddings like 15 years ago. Not a whole lot, but I did. Okay. I did some weddings here and there, and just to kind of fill in the gaps. But I decided that they weren't my thing, and then I was asked to do a wedding this year, and I reluctantly said yes. But yeah, it was a big shift of gears from landscape photography to weddings.
Yeah. Well, since it's been a while, how did you end up liking it? Was it?
You know what? There's parts of the day that I really enjoy, and it's capturing the moments that aren't staged. I don't like doing the setup shots, and I think most photographers are getting away from that. You capture more of the fleeting moments and things like that. I think are better. But maybe that's because I don't do a lot of portrait photography that I feel that way. So.
Well, the ones I saw that you posted looked really good. So yeah. Hopefully the bride and groom, or bride, it's not so much the groom, but hopefully the bride will be happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else out there? While we're thinking about that, Jim, I know we put the link out there to your website, and I'll put it on the show notes, but just anybody who's listening to audio, because we do have a lot of listeners, believe it or not, who listen to the show through Stitcher Radio.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got a few of them who've come over to our Facebook page, very active in the Facebook page, and a few of them who are now watching the show through YouTube, because we're also off on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who are listening through Stitcher, how would somebody find you? Can you say what your address is? Are you on Twitter at all?
I did start up a WordPress. I don't really use it a lot. I haven't kept it up, so it's kind of out of date. But and actually, the last month to 2 months, I haven't been super active on Google Plus, just because I've been so busy, and I just haven't had the time to get on. As everybody knows, it can be a time sink.
Oh yeah.
But
so can
I
Facebook.
would say that's probably the best place to kind of maybe keep track, and if you want to take a look at some of my images, because I do have a lot of them up there, and you'll get more of a story behind the images by going through my profile posts.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's probably the best.
So go into Google Plus and searching for Jim Davis.
Yeah, and if you if you do a search for Jim Davis Google Plus, there are a few of us on Google Plus, but you'll see my photos. That
Yeah.
The other gyms I don't think are so much into the landscape photography.
Right.
So
Yeah, so you should find it pretty soon. And then when you go to Google Plus and you there's a tab there for photos, there's a tab there for about, and I know on your about tab, I believe you have links to like your SmugMug account and wherever else. I don't think you have a Facebook page, do you?
Well, I do have Facebook, but I'm not really super active on it. And it's just one of those things, you know. It's to try and keep up with all these social media sites. It's pretty tough.
It is. You know, really, I don't know how people can keep up with more than one. You know, if you're on Facebook or Google Plus, they both can just suck up all your time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they can. It's difficult. And anyway, okay. Kathleen, what about you? How can people find you?
Facebook and www.kathleenbowiephotography.com.
Okay. And Tim?
You can't find me.
Tim is rarely in the Facebook group.
I pop by here and there. I guess through the jpeg2RAW website, where I have a Flickr page, but I don't even put much on there anymore.
And you know, you can find all three of us. You can contact all three of us, Tim, Kathleen, and I, by sending us an email at podcast@jpeg2RAW.com. You know, if you have comments about the show, questions for Jim that maybe we didn't get you want answered and we didn't get to answer them, you know, we can shoot them on over to Jim, or you can contact him directly, or you have guest suggestions. You know, we've gotten a few guest suggestions. Guest last week was from a listener who suggested that we reach out to him. So, you know, send us an email through there. And if you haven't subscribed to the show yet, either on YouTube or on iTunes or on, you know, I use on my phone, Dog Catcher, just an app. Not Dog Catcher. Dog Catcher is one, but I don't use that. I use Beyond Pod for my phone. And even though I do get the video one. So I get the video one and I have it playing, not hours because I'm here live, but on some others I do play videos as I'm driving into work, but I'm not watching it. I'm listening to the audio. So I'm not like watching my video as I'm driving into work.
Yes, let's hope so.
No, because I get in trouble. Well, I listen to the audio, but you know, at least having a video, if there's something I wanted to see, I can wait before it deletes and then go back and watch it. So with that said, you know, we do put out 3 feeds. We put out the audio one, which Stitcher Radio only gets the audio. YouTube, of course, only gets the video. And then iTunes has all 3 of them, which is the audio, a video large, and a video small. So that's the best way to get all of them. And we have one more question as we go to leave here. Oh, okay. So this is just more of a comment, not a question. And she's saying that she's not so much a landscape photographer, but she really enjoyed the show. Yeah, Jim is a great guest. We had him on, like I said, back in show number 26. We hope to have him back somewhere in the future too. And he's always off on these adventures. And you know, a guy who can hike through the woods 200 miles with a canoe is always going to come back with some great stories and some wonderful photos. His photos are just amazing. I would suggest that you go out to his Facebook, and not Facebook, his SmugMug account and Google Plus to really look at the images. Google Plus does a great job of showing those images in much bigger, where you can see them and get a feel for how good they are.
Yeah.
With that, I think we'll wrap this one up. We need to come up with a better ending, a better way to close the show.
That's all, folks.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Thanks, everyone.
Those sound like something's already used all those. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you in chat for coming. Thank you.
Good night, guys.
All right. That will be the end. Jim, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Yeah. No, we love having you back, and the timing was perfect because I know, you know, around here the leaves are just starting to change. There's some trees that change a little bit earlier. So I got some trees that are starting to change, but as I went up, you know, North Georgia, I did not see that many. So I'm going to start going every weekend. And, you know, when I went last weekend for last, I came back and my wife said, "How many pictures did you take?" And I said, "You know, I didn't really take any with the camera. I took a few with my phone, but I didn't take any with the camera." He goes, "Oh, that's too bad." And I said, "You know what? It was actually very, very enjoyable because while I did a lot of driving looking for places, I rolled down the windows. The weather started to cool way down, and it was just really a nice, peaceful drive. Generally, when I'm up in the country like that and I got people driving too slow in front of me, it just drives me nuts. I want them to go faster. But this time it was more laid back. I rode the windows. There's a huge difference between riding with the windows up and air conditioning on and riding with the windows down, to me at least. Everything slowed down. I'd come across the scene. Oh, that looks awesome. I'd pull over, take a photo with my phone because the leaves hadn't changed yet. And I told her, yeah, while I didn't come back with any photos that are worthy of anything, I did get a bunch of spots where I want to go back and check them out as the leaves start to change. So I didn't look at it as a wasted trip at all.
Yeah. It'll be good for when those leaves start going.
Yeah. All right, Jim. Thank you for coming. I think Kathleen and you wanted to talk to me about something, but I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here out there to whoever's left. As you go to leave, click on the ad right below chat, everybody. It will take you out of here, but click on that for us and we'll get a small credit. And then we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jim.